jumping straight into it, I'll ask my first question. We are seeing AI capabilities expand exponentially all across the world, but organizational readiness has often been looked at as if they're lagging behind. So, what is the most critical yet overlooked components of building true AI readiness in an enterprise setting? We're talking about like a large scale B2B setting.
Sure. So there's a couple of things I'd say, and this is targeted to leaders who I often talk to a lot. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to create an urgency in the culture of your company that everyone have a baseline understanding of how artificial intelligence works, and how it connects with existing business challenges. Okay. There's a book called The Technology Fallacy written several years ago, but it's true today. And they found that organizations that had a clear understanding of how disruptive technology worked and they could connect it to their business, they were significantly more likely to achieve digital transformation than those that don't. In other words, it's not the technology, it's your people. Do they understand it? Are they ready for the change? And most importantly, the second point is you have to develop this competency to reframe business challenges as prediction problems. Let me give you an example. In the United Kingdom, it became very difficult 10 years ago to get a London cab at rush hour in Piccadilly Square. And if you ask the transportation leaders in the country, or even London Cab, they would have told you that is a logistics problem. We can get enough cars, we can't get enough drivers. So the bottleneck is we can't get enough drivers. Well, guess what? The drivers had to go to school for 3 or 4 years to learn what's called the knowledge, so they would know how to get everywhere in London at any time of the day or week. And then came Waze, the artificial intelligence application, which changed everything. So now to be a driver, you didn't have to go to school 3 or 4 years. You just had to have a car and a good sense of judgment about how to drive a car. Well, guess what? They increased the number of drivers in the United Kingdom in the last decade over 500% with the launch of Uber. What did we learn from that? It was never a talent shortage. It was always a prediction problem. That competency lies at the heart of really grasping artificial intelligence solutions, whether it's a good old-fashioned machine learning solution, which is quite mature, or something more cutting edge like we're seeing with large language models. But it starts with looking at your operating plan, finding the dependencies that are real challenges, and asking yourself, would prediction power, machine learning, generative AI, would that make a dent on this? Once you pick that up, you've started to achieve what Dr. Sadal Neely calls the 30% rule. She wrote a great book on this. It's called The Digital Mindset. She says business leaders don't need to understand 100% of the technology to leverage it correctly. They need to understand about 30%. And I think the 30% is the simple, how does it work? And how do I tie business challenges to it? The mistake that's being made now is we fall in love with the technology solution, so we adopt it, and then we try to find problems it can go solve. And that's not the way you do it.
Yeah, well said. But we're also hearing a lot of discussion in the market about AI replacing jobs. I think that is something that has been over and said again and again. But let's talk about how it's creating job opportunities and transforming the existing ones. So how do you see AI reshaping B2B workforce?
So I think of it this way. Artificial intelligence doesn't really replace a job as much as it replaces a series of tasks that might currently be part of a human's job, okay? Right now, either artificial intelligence, automation, or even agents, they have very narrow focus. They can't quite yet move across a complicated process like we can, but what they can do is go after repetitive tasks. The difference between traditional automation and, say, agents is that the agent can be much more dynamic. They can deal with things that haven't been predicted and scripted yet. In other words, deterministic programming like automation. So they can be a little bit wider and cover a little bit more opportunity. We've had automation for a long time. It's just that what we're seeing with artificial intelligence is a lot more tasks can be automated. Now, that may eliminate some roles at a company, but at the same time, it will increase opportunities at that same company to drive the artificial intelligence, to help design it, to give it feedback, to integrate it, to be experts at vendor selection. And those jobs will pay more. That's the first thing. The second thing we're going to see is that artificial intelligence is going to enable more people to start their own companies like we've never seen before, okay? I was just reading an article the other day that we're going to see billion-dollar companies that have 2 employees and a multitude of agents. That opportunity didn't exist before AI. You'd have to go to work for a big company for 40 years and watch the people in the C-suite make millions of dollars and sit on the sideline because you didn't have the money to start a company. That game's going to change. I'll give you what I like to call it the Uber paradox. I'm coming back to this Uber story, and this is something I'm writing about in my next book. You know, when Uber came out, a lot of people were like, wow, taxi drivers are going to lose their jobs. And when you think about it, in the long run, at least 500% more jobs were created by the Uber phenomenon. A lot of the people that drive Ubers today, they didn't have a job. Some of them were retired and scraping to get by, and technology came along and created a job for them. So while there have been some taxi cab drivers that might have lost their work to Uber, the numbers tell a really different story. We've seen this in history. The Uber paradox is not new. When automated teller machines came out decades ago, ATMs as they're called, where you just go to a machine and get money. Did you know that a human being called a teller, you used to have to go into a bank and a teller spent most of their day counting money. Today, tellers don't count money. You know what they do? They give financial advice and they make more money. And guess what else? There are literally 3 times more tellers today adjusted for population growth than there were when automated tellers come out, because they're doing higher order jobs that make the banks more money so they continue to expand. I understand the fear of all of this, but the reality is human beings are not happy doing the same thing 100 times a day that a machine can do. Human beings are happy when they're doing what you and I are doing right now: thinking, problem solving, working at something from a critical lens. So I think it's a fear that's been around since the beginning of history when technology comes along. But the paradox of it all is it creates more opportunity. Now, the one caveat I would say for those people listening and saying, yeah, but how long, is that sometimes there is a short-term disruption, right? So there is an opportunity, there is a chance that, say, in the world of customer service, a lot of roles will be eliminated by agents because that's a pretty easy use case. And it may take 3, 5, 10 years for that snowball effect of new opportunities to be created. So I believe that governments are going to have to think about what the plan is in that short-term period where the initial decline is waiting for the run-up of opportunity later. That is a valid concern, but we should still pursue it for the sake of humanity.
Yeah, agreed. So coming to my next question, many organizations today are struggling with AI FOMO. And when I say AI FOMO, they are kind of missing out, but they don't know exactly what they're missing out on, while simultaneously also dealing with AI skepticism among stakeholders. So how can business leaders balance aggressive AI adoption with thoughtful implementation and risk management?
I think that the best way to think about going in correctly to this opportunity is getting back to this idea. Look at your biggest business challenges, test artificial intelligence solutions to address your business challenges, and be willing to scale investment accordingly. So I tell people, for example, if you've been spending a lot of money with Google on AdWords, you might want to take a little bit of that money and start investing it to be effective with large language models and scale that up as it begins to work. So start as slow as you can, but have a sense of urgency not to wait too long, because AI has exponential impact. AI is not coming for your job, but people that are armed and good with AI are coming for your job. So it's a definite thing you have to balance, but the answer is, it's like the Chinese proverb. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
That was great advice. Coming to my last question, and we'll just wrap it up quickly. Looking ahead 3 to 5 years, which AI applications or use cases do you believe that will become absolutely essential for B2B companies to remain competitive in the market?
I think agentic AI is going to be the most essential ingredient for an effective business in the future. Why is this the case? it will dramatically expand the size of workforce you can put against pressing business problems. I think if you're not looking at agents for customer service and sales and marketing and software development, you are literally handing the keys to the market to your competitors that are. I believe agents will only get better in terms of their reliability. The real issue is your ability to trust them, and you will only trust them once you've used them a lot. So the time to get started is now.
And with that, we wrap up our professional
Thank you.
spotlight with Tim Sanders. Thank you so much, Tim, for sharing
Thank
some
you.
amazing insights with us. It was
Thank
lovely to
you.
chat with you.